when I was hired, I was pregnant of my second child, like really pregnant. Nina was born 15 days after I joined.
She grew up in the backseat of her father's car singing a song called Magic Balloon. Decades later, that same song became the icon of her own company. A Brazilian who went from consumer insights to big tech to New York City, with 2 kids, a husband, and a whole lot of courage. She's a marketer, a mentor, and someone who will tell you that being brave is not something that you're born with. It is something that you have to practice every single day. Join me and Camila Rocca in the Retrovisor. I'm so excited about today's guest. I'm joined by Camila. We met being product marketeers. She's currently in Florida and I'm here in New York, but actually we met back in Latam, her being in Brazil, myself in Argentina.
Thank you so much. It's so exciting to be here. I love the theme of your podcast. So thank you for inviting me. And I think we are going to have a great time here.
So, Camila, before we jump into, the big moments, the highs of your career, I like to start looking way, 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 way back. Tell me a bit about Camila as an 8-year-old. Like, what did you enjoy doing? What you couldn't wait to get home?
8-year-old Camila was very curious, would love exploring everything, doing new things, and I was literally up for anything. So I would love to do from climbing trees to all the way to visiting museums and traveling. So I was always observer and explorer.
I think that there is a lot of exploration done later on in life, so that's very much in line with that 8-year-old. Do you remember what was your answer back then when people used to ask you, what do you want to do when you grow up?
Yes, I do. I come from an advertiser's family. So my dad, my brother, my mom, my stepmom, everyone literally was in advertising. So I was like, okay. And of course, I was really influenced by their passion in different ways. Some of them were in the strategy, some other were in the creative itself piece. But I learned and I grew up having these discussions at dinner table, right? So I couldn't help falling in love with this profession, and so I chose that. But it's very interesting because I think I brought a mixture of the strategy plus the creativity. So I could see that since the beginning. I knew I wanted to do advertising, but I had no clue in reality what it would be actually, right? And I remember a funny story is when I was a kid, I used to go in the back seat of my father's car singing a song very popular in Brazil by that time in the 80s that was called Magic Balloon. And I was singing nonstop that song. And nowadays that I founded and beyond my consultancy, my father and my brother designed my logo brand. And guess what? The icon of my brand is the magic balloon. So
Oh,
yeah. So
okay.
I
I love
love
that family, that family business. Did you feel like you ever had a choice of like, oh, I could do advertiser or I could be like a
Oh
doctor?
yes. Yes. I
Okay.
like, I think especially my father was concerned actually. He never said he didn't want me to do advertising, but he was concerned. And I could see he was like, you can go explore and try new things. And at some point I did. I was like in doubt before the university. I was like, okay, is this for real? Am I gonna do it? Advertising? So I started going, like chemistry or nutrition, some very like different things. But then I was like, no, this is what I think I like. And I'm glad because I do love it.
Now, you reference your studies, and I think that what is interesting is that, yes, you did study advertising, but you also studied semiotics. Tell me a bit about the combination of both and what caught your attention, basically.
I was always passionate about connecting brand to people. When I was starting, I was much in the strategy side. So learning about consumer behaviors and how a brand could actually approach people. And when I started learning about semiotics, and semiotics just a quick definition because I know it's a big word, but it is the study of symbols, signs, and everything that we communicate somehow without actually saying sometimes, right? So pretty much color, shape, all the layers you use in communication without actually being me speaking something. And when I was like, okay, so I got the advertising and the strategy, but which are the other layers that I can use to go further and to deep dive, you know? And I found semiotics really helpful in that. So I started doing that. And by that time, I was also a lot exploring product innovation, and the whole digital thing was beginning. And I was like, I like it. And so I used the approach of design thinking to develop like design thinking with semiotic theory, let's say, to develop a method to bring consumer behavior on upfront when we are creating a digital interface. So pretty much, how can we use consumers and users as protagonists and build something for them in all the look and feel, all the tools, everything pretty much, the structure. So yeah, it was a really, really nice deep dive, I would say. And it inspired me a lot later on in the product side of.
Yeah, and I think that what it's interesting is that maybe now sounds like a no-brainer. Like there's all these big brands with customer obsession and the customer at the core of what we do and how we listen to them. But probably when you started like studying, this was like this is not the norm. It's like what I want, I put on my website. I don't care. So I think that kind of what back in the day was groundbreaking. That idea of we put the consumer and we build around what that consumer behavior. So you finish university. Clearly, advertising was going to be in your path. But what did you want it to do within that big advertising world?
So during the university, I saw that I am very creative and I love like having new ideas and so on. But I had not as much skills in drawing or doing the actual pieces. I am good like in other kind of handcraft, but not like for advertising. And I started falling in love with strategy and brand strategy. And by that time, my stepmom used to have a company for qualitative research where she did like strategic planning and consumer insights. And of course, my first job was there. And I took it in parallel to the university. So I couldn't help, right? I started like, okay, consumer insights is my place.
I mean, that sounds like the dream stepmom to have to anyone that it's studying university. Is like you hear of family businesses and how complicated, but this was definitely your calling. I mean, you couldn't even escape your stepmom. So that I love that. Okay, so I assume that your first corporate role, you come with a lot more experience than a lot of the people that you finished university with.
So I was 6 years with her in her company. And then I was, okay, now I need to leave, right? I need to start
I
getting
need to
serious.
build my own, yes.
Not that I wasn't, but I mean, and so my first corporate role was at Kraft Foods for consumer insights in snacks. So chocolates, biscuits, snacks overall. It
Oh,
was
my passion.
really, yeah, it was amazing, amazing. And I started discovering all the product innovation side of because I used to do all the tests of formulas, of new packagings, of everything new, right? So I thought, I love product as well. And that's where also I think the product seed started in my life.
Now, do you remember any good piece of advice that you were given at that time?
There are some things that happened. Now, bringing it all back to my mind, I went from a small company, familiar company, to a big, gigantic corporate company, right? So I think, first of all, I started learning how to navigate all different roles, people, team, and wow, a whole new world came back, and like I could actually start learning. I would say especially it helped a lot, the, let's say, the basis I had already in terms of consumer insights and knowledge about like methodologies and etc. But everything else, on like all the other layers, I started learning there. And by that time, one of my managers during that role was very attentive to details and very perfectionist. And I was in the beginning, right, of my career. So I started being very perfectionist and really like paying attention to details and being very like demanding in that instance. And some years later, still in craft, I became a people manager. And of course, I started replicating that. And when I was leaving, one of my assistants came to me with a cake to give me as a gift. But then she said, "Oh, I wish I packed the cake so perfect as you deserve." At that moment, and I am so grateful, I think I'd never told her. And now I have the chance to, I will share with her. But I've never told her how much it was important for me to hear that and how grateful I am to actually had perceived that in that comment, because that did change my whole experience as a people manager. So at that moment, whoa, that's not how I want to be. And so I really changed it across the journey, I would say, being more people focused and not detail focused.
No, I get it. And I think that like there is a generational, nowadays we speak about, first of all, like that's a great story. And I love the fact that she will only discover how impactful she was in your career as a people manager from in the Retrovisor or in the Retrovisor. So I love this moment. But I think that also nowadays it's a lot more acceptable to focus on people's strengths.
Yeah.
Whereas back then it was like
It was
everyone
not.
should deliver at the same level. I think that also we are like a bit of that middle generation that like half of their career was like started in one way and half of the other part we were able to pivot into, okay, you as a person and what are your strengths and how can I elevate and focus only on that rather than focus on the glass that it's half empty.
And by that time, nobody actually, like, we didn't have leadership development, right? Leadership skills. So you just had to do your best and just move on. So, which now make me really passionate about, of course, leadership and people focus. But yeah, it was really challenging.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You kind of, it was the natural progression of your career. You become a manager, whereas now it's like, am I good people? Is that what I want to do? Like, because I also have the opportunity to be very senior in what I do, but without managing people. And that's also very respectable. Now, Cami, we meet at Meta. You were in Brazil, as I said. You already mentioned the difference between going from a family business to like a big company, but I have a feeling that Meta is a completely, again, it's a different scale. It's like global tech, big tech, high velocity. How did that environment shape you as a professional?
I can honestly say it shaped me completely. Those years at Meta were the actual, I would say, thing for me in terms of in so many different ways. So first of all, the fast pacing, right? I thought I knew what fast is. And two, I actually knew it. And so it was really fast pacing. And what really caught my attention was the drive for results and to drive impact and to actually see and feel that you had the autonomy to create projects or initiatives or anything, right? To use your creativity to actually drive business result, right? So that was a really wow thing for me. And it was really, really good. Also, the other thing I think it's very important is for the first time, I could see a company culture really strong, but not as strong as like, okay, people feel it, but like an actual business strategy. And I saw how profitable that is and how actually it does drive business results. It's not like a utopia or something like that. And so, and that's why I think also I became so advocate for culture, company culture, because this is really something really powerful that people are starting to get the sense of, but I could see in reality how powerful it is for people, for passion, and for driving results.
I think that is a good point. And it's that combination that you've been talking about between we see people as a full self and not only what they can deliver. So there is that impact part that is definitely you need to achieve your OKRs and you will be measured, but it's also we work as a team and as a team we grow together, and that idea of unity, which it's also quite new. Like I also feel like when we started working, it was like I don't know, we don't care about that. As you said, like you just showed up, you do your job, and you carry
Yeah.
on basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can say, even after leaving, until nowadays, I know this is more, people talk more about it and they are more aware of it. But I still think there is a huge gap between what people think culture is versus what it actually is in reality in their companies, you know.
What did you like most about that culture?
I think what I love the most is open communication because I found it's very easy to collaborate, to take action, to make decisions, to have difficult conversations, everything based on open communication.
I love that, and I agree, and I think that there was an element of assuming good intentions, and with that base, open communication could happen. Now, Brazilian based in US with not necessarily a straight line. If you would have to tell me about, let's say, two pivotal moments of your career, and I think that like entering Meta has been one of them because you alluded to that, but what would those be? What were the moments that like really shape who you are?
I have two very clear ones. Meta is indeed one of them, but not only because what we talked, but because, as you remember, when I was hired, I was pregnant of my second child, like really pregnant. Nina was born 15 days after I joined. So that for me in that time was a life changing thing because of course, for me, it was amazing from a professional perspective, career perspective, but it changed my entire perspective about being a mom, which I love, versus having to choose whether I would have a successful career in a corporation or if I would have to give up any of those, right, at some point. Because again, from the 80s, things were very different. There was always this pressure, right? There is still nowadays that you cannot actually, all women, I guess, feel that at some point they will have to choose one or another. And I could actually be in the peak of my career having a baby. So I was like, okay, that's possible. And it changes my own perspective. And this is, I think, very important because I saw that we have our role in that decision. as well, right? And I know it's not easy, hundreds of challenges, but it's possible. And I became a very big advocate for that, for people being moms and loving being a mom and being successful and making their dreams in a profession come true. So this was one.
I will say that what I wrote when you were talking was bravery, because I think that there is that element of, can I do both at the same time? But I also think that, to go through such a stressful interview process, being pregnant, knowing that you will join and then go like goodbye for a few months, that takes a lot of bravery, I think.
For me at that time, it was nonsense. I was like, oh my God, is this happening? Because in the back of my mind, I was almost positive that I wouldn't get that role. And so I was like, okay, I would do my best. I would trust the process and just jump into it. And yeah, I'm glad it worked. And then after that, I think my second pivot moment was also at Meta when I was transferred to New York, right? Because then, oh my God, I always dreamed to have an international experience. So this was something always in my life. But when it actually happens and you have kids and your husband and the whole crew with you, and it's like such a big, deep transformation, right? Both, big cultural changes and also very small things, such as I had to reset my mind and like, okay, how do I wash clothes now? How do I memorize New York subway lines? Like a whole new thing. And this was actually amazing because I can tell this kind of redefined my identity, my courage for sure, and also my dreams. It was challenging. It is still challenging, but I can say I became a much better person after those transformations.
I love that. And I think that the second word that comes to mind is bravery. Again, it takes a lot of bravery to move abroad and to go like, okay, kids, let's go. Off you go. And I think that idea of, how you can still build on your dreams and what you aspire of life together, and how work can be an enabler of that.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Now I've got two questions for you to finish. The first one is, with everything that you know now, probably advertising was always going to be in your cards since, we have every single person. Probably the dog was very creative as well at your house. But anyway, if you would be able to give a piece of advice to that Cami that is just thinking about what to study, what would you say to that, Cami? What would that piece of advice be?
I would say that courage takes practice, and for her to be strong and courageous, never give up, to do everything with passion, because at some point, and that's the beauty of it, we don't know, but at some point it will, like, the biggest dreams will come true. So never give up and always move forward.
I love that self-confidence, and which is so hard to find when you're getting started. And now a bit of a plot twist in here, because we spend all this conversation talking about the past. Now, if you would be able to send this conversation to Cami, but in 20 years from now, what would you say to her?
Honestly, I wish I would say the same thing. I would say to my 8-year-old, so continue to be strong, courageous. And nowadays, I found Ambient, right, which is my company, and I founded the Change mentoring program, it was born from the belief of embracing change can be good. It's not comfortable, but can be good. And from the belief also that I experienced a lot of cheating during my journey, and somehow I was able to put it into methodology, right? And so now I can help people and I see how important it is to find who they are, what they actually want, and actually have a strategy, right? A positioning to do all of it and achieve actual results. And I am very amazed on how strong it is to know who you are and what you want. And so 20 years from now, I wish I can tell you, having a cup of tea in the afternoon, that I was able to help so many leaders, so many women find who they are, their strengths, and never to doubt themselves, like to actually be strong and courageous. So it's like if you can 20 years from now say, oh, Camila taught people to be stronger, at least tiny a little bit, that's done for me as my mission.
I love that. And I have no doubt. I have no doubt that you have a lot to share, that people can learn a lot from it. I do hope that the person that taught you to be less of a perfectionist will admire this episode. And I am sure that we will review this episode in 20 years from now and can look back at all the people that you have helped be stronger and more courageous. Cami, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you
I
here.
love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much. And to all of you listening, I can wait to see you in a few weeks. Thank you, Cami.